the podcast today with a daytime edition. We have two amazing guests with us. We're going to have an amazing show. Let's get it.
Yo, how y'all doing tonight? It's a beautiful Tuesday. Tonight we're joined with two amazing guests. But before we get into that, like, subscribe to the video, hit the bell so you get notified every time we go live. Also, join the Discord. We are in there talking every day, all day. You could drop us videos you want us to react to. Just chat with us, everything like that, etc. Also, if you're in the Discord, June 10th, 50K, if we hit 50K subscribers, I would take two people on the cruise, all paid for by me and the Unfiltred team, and we'll handle all that. Also, shout out to our sponsor.
Yeah, shout out to the sponsor.
Shout out to them. We just got that new pack, and I know you saw it on our Instagram stories. This is an amazing product. I use it every night to go to sleep.
He's not lying.
And I wake up refueled every time. And I only sleep 5 hours, and I wake up fresh. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Also, the gummies, it's a smooth high. It's not like a deep, dangerous high that you can't work off of. You can't operate. You could do work and still operate.
Yeah. And guys, we have a discount code. If you go to the bio, go on the description, you'll see the code on there. Today we have two amazing guests with us. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. We'll start off with you. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Nicholas Saronis. I come from New York City, currently staying in Miami for the next few months. And what's going on in town here. And I'm very excited to be talking to you guys. Very grateful for the invitation.
Nice. Looks like you got away from the code. All right, what about you?
Do what I can.
Go ahead.
All right, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Kish. I am 34 years old. I'm a physician, and I'll be starting a job in Fort Lauderdale in a few months.
Okay, nice. So you're moving here from where?
I'm coming from New Jersey.
New Jersey. Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, shout out to New Jersey and New York. Well, a lot of our guests are always from New Jersey or New York. That's pretty cool.
Y'all trying to get out the cold.
Yeah, I think it's the code. Yeah. That code gets to people eventually. So welcome. And you're gonna love Fort Lauderdale. It's beautiful.
You used to live in Miami, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar with there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, chat. I see you guys sprinkling in. I see you guys coming in one at a time. Shout out to you guys. Today we have we have two videos that I want to react to, and I want to get your our guests. I want to get their opinions on that. But while before we get into the videos, I want to ask you guys. So you guys are all familiar with what's going on with Andrew Tate, correct? Mm-hmm. You guys want to tell me how you guys feel about that situation?
The Andrew Tate situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know if the allegations are true or not. I think, of course, if they are true, absolutely then, whatever penalty there is for that, then justice should be done. That being said, the guy definitely has a target on his back. I think one of the things that's really interesting about a guy like Tate is the amount of relationships he's had, women he's had to work with over the course of his webcam career and stuff like that, versus some other people who have had a career with, let's say, much more straightforward mainstream jobs. The lengths at which they've had to go to potentially find something, potentially to get him, has been interesting to watch. There's some other people, politicians, whatever, actors or something, who are living very different lives, much more regular kind of jobs, or just like that, you can find something crazy. So I think that is kind of interesting. But in general, I'm curious to see what happens. I think constantly calling out the powers that be in the Matrix definitely puts you at risk. Yeah. So I'm not entirely surprised, but at the same time, given the kind of history he's had in his career and stuff, I felt like the writing was a little bit of a wall. Eventually people are going to dig hard enough and deep enough and try to come after him.
Yeah. And I feel like he's that nail that's sticking out, right, in society. And I feel like they're trying to teach him a lesson.
Well, he's not making it easy. I mean, he's kind of definitely putting himself out there and stuff like that. So, I would assume, he seems to always say that he's at plan. He's also talked about that eventually the Matrix would come and get him and lock him up again. I'm not saying that one way or the other, trying to defend or not defend or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But, given the history of how he made some of his money, and he's making money in a lot of different ways, right? But given how he's made some of his money, given the way he's kind of put himself out there kind of against the Matrix and stuff like that, I think anybody who does any math and pay any attention knew that something like this eventually was going to happen. Yeah. Even if whether it was real or even if it was someone who was getting paid to say something in order to create this, one way or another, it was going to go down.
Yeah. Here's the thing. When you become super uber successful like that, eventually everything from your past comes back. Whether if it was, especially if it was bad, right?
Well, if you're pissing off powerful people too.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The webcam thing he was doing wasn't necessarily illegal.
Absolutely not. No.
It just so happens that, it's not something that society finds favorable, right? As far as making your money. And he's been he's left that field a long time ago. Right. He's got into so many other things.
Yeah.
I find it funny how they're coming after him for that years later.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You piss off enough powerful people, let alone have a history and a career or something like that. I'm sure bribes will get thrown out. Yeah. People will do the digging. They'll find something. Or again, it doesn't take a lot of incentive maybe for somebody who feels like maybe they now have a grudge that they want to bring to bear. And then
here's my thing though. They've gone into his house, right, multiple times. They've arrested him for this before. They let him go, and they're arresting him for this again now. We used to work at another before we started our own podcast with another podcast. They were really close with Andrew. Actually, they just went to go see him at his home in Romania. Yeah. And the guy speaks really highly about him, about his character. Even Tristan, those guys, they speak very good about him. And the guy was an ex-federal agent, so I don't think that's something that he would lie about. But yeah, I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I'm a little limited with some of this stuff. I'm kind of new to social media, but the first thing that we know in this day and age is, are the things that we read on the news, or the things that we read on the internet, are they true? Mm-hmm. And especially if multiple sources keep saying the same thing, you already start seeing a pattern. So even if you really don't know this person, but in this system, they can make things up. They repeat the same things. Journalism doesn't do their actual research. Mm-hmm. There's not really unbiased journalism this day. Are they out for the truth? No, they're out for the clicks.
Yeah.
They're out for that ad revenue.
Yeah.
So even if you keep that mental framework in mind, and then you see these same people are saying these same things, then it makes you go off that, okay, I'm not even sure if what he did is wrong or right, but why are you guys all saying the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah. When you repeat something long enough, I've said this to friends before, when you repeat something long enough, you start to believe it. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. Before we get to the video, I'd like to get Basil's thoughts on it.
I mean, you see what they're doing in the UK, trying to reprogram kids from Andrew Tate to brainwashing. I don't want to sound biased from, my opinion about him, but I definitely think personally for me, I am 20 years old, so I am young, and he definitely has changed my life in good ways. Taught me certain things that a father should teach you, right? How to be masculine. So they're all pushing that he's a bad person. They take away from the good he's doing for men and all. I think they're trying to latch on to the women, this women subject, women. But why are we pushing past the good he's doing?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, he's definitely reached out to a lot of men, and I think they're, before Andrew, I don't think I can think of anyone that was really grabbing young men the way he is. And then that sounds really bad, but just the way that the way he's reaching these young men, right, and changing their lives. And another person that is very similar to him, but in a different way, is Jordan Peterson. Actually, I'm reading his book right now, 12 Rules for Life. And I find it very ironic how they're both being attacked in very similar ways, except for, Jordan Peterson's not in jail right now. But exactly. They're also going after him. I'd like to get to some of these chats before we get into the first video. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, Miyazaki Lee asks, question for the men. Do you think masculinity is demonized in the U.S.? And most importantly, why is it being demonized?
That's a good question. I'll let you answer that.
It feels like it's being demonized. Mm-hmm. It feels like it. I saw something came out the other day that was saying that, actually that was straight up said in the headline. Somebody would have to Google it to make sure I'm not, wrong. But I think the headline was why masculinity is actually toxic, just as a whole. So it feels like that way sometimes. On the other hand, I feel like in some ways things haven't changed for guys in the sense that society demands a lot, and if a man doesn't work to improve himself and like meet those demands, then society kind of forgets you and is unforgiving. So in some ways, the game hasn't really changed, right?
Not for men.
Not for men.
Yeah.
No. I think what's changed, there is a little bit of, it definitely feels like an attack on masculinity, right? And I think at the same time, though, there's been so much division throughout the last 20 years. I'm a bit older than you guys are. I'm 39 now, right?
Okay.
So putting on some years.
Looking
here,
young.
right?
Yeah,
You
looking
look
young.
I didn't know. I wasn't 39. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that
Looking
one.
like 29.
Definitely aging some. And like I remember, I remember I was in New York. Well, not in New York. I was in Long Island at the time, but like the very next day I was in New York after September 11th hit and stuff like that. And I remember like what I saw and witnessed, and I grew up very democratic and like progressive and stuff like that. And at the time Bush was won, we also had the 2000 election, right? And like that was all sorts of shenanigans going on there in Florida at the time. Michael Moore put out a documentary, actually, I think it was Fahrenheit 9/11, that went into how they could actually change the elections and stuff like that. So this was all stuff coming when I was like younger and on the left, being like, oh man, they can fuck with my elections. They can lie to me to my face about wars and all this stuff. And like, you know, and you look enough was known about the 9/11 commission, stuff like that. We weren't given like the full truth.
Yeah.
Like, why was all this money traded hands before it actually happened?
Yeah.
Why were so many investigations into the pilots not actually gone through? But the point is that like, it was easy to be on that side with, at least with all my people, all my friends, because it was also like Democrats, I guess, Republicans at the time. And I was a Democrat, so it was okay to say those things.
Yeah.
It's very weird now, all these years later. My sister, actually, she's pretty young, and now this is her September 11th in a sense, right? She's like a freshman in college with COVID and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of the same formula being like repeated. So what I'm saying is this, is like, you had those 8 years of Bush, right? I was 17 at the time when that happened. You had those 8 years of Bush, and like a big chunk of the country wasn't happy for a really long time. Then Obama came in, and like I was actually big into Obama and the hope and change, and very quickly kind of saw through, for lack of a better term, like the Matrix, and that like the Wall Street bailouts, a lot of the things I didn't like about Bush. Like I thought there was too much executive power, too much of him trying to like keep the press quiet. Then like Obama came and kept up a lot of these same policies. Like, oh, I see the code. Like
he said it was going to change a lot, but he didn't.
Right. But then 8 years after that, right, you still have a huge part of the population feels like it's not being served. That's 16 years.
Yeah.
Then you throw on that Trump, which everybody lost their minds.
Yeah, that was wild.
Right. So now when we get to the thing about like masculinity and trying to bring this like whole thing home, you know, if it feels like we're being attacked, I feel like what's going on is that like ultimately what women want is to be respected. Yeah. Right. We're past the time where we can just casually all the time, I think, just dunk on women all the time, especially if we feel like women are maybe acting in a way that is inappropriate. But we're in such a frazzled state with so much other stuff, and have been for so long, that like now it's like, now there's maybe a lot of fun in now there's like an edge to it, maybe a meanness. And I think some people are having fun with it. That is probably having a negative effect on things. But I think there's things everybody actually really agrees on, and that both sides, both sexes really want. But we're so agitated with so many things that rather than try to figure it out, it's either to just blame and hate on men, and then makes it really easy to hate on women. Yeah. You know, and so that's mine.
Yeah. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. In the West, 100%, there's an attack on masculinity, because a male who can think for themselves, can think for their family, can think ahead, things that you're not necessarily taught in school. And I'll talk a little bit more about my background, because I've had extensive schooling and different degrees and all that stuff. But that's almost to a threat to the government per se. Oh yeah. You know, and the male who is easy, you know, you even see it in the TVs, right? On the sitcoms and stuff. Look at the father in all of these TV shows. Oh, he's silly. He's kind of goofball. He's dummy. You know, does he have any leadership qualities that you see in maybe a father figure, or uncle that we had growing up? They don't show that anymore. And that's how you know that they're attacking it. And then, you know, of course, they do other little subtle things that like, okay, hey, watch ESPN all day. Oh, hey, sit home and smoke weed all day. Oh, hey, become like, you know, no offense to Twitch streamers, but oh, hey, play video games all day. So how can you become a masculine male if your mind is distracted
agree.
with all these things.
100%.
And they push all those things, you know?
I got a random, this is not to Don Jordan, but I actually have a random little kind of like cutoff point because like all this is true. But then also we had like Captain America movies. And I remember like when they were doing Captain America movies and it was what, Chris
Hemsworth or something
No.
like that?
Hemsworth is Thor.
Yeah, Hemsworth.
Evans.
Chris
right?
Evans. Yeah. That was-
So like I remember when it got to like Winter Soldier and he was like, and like he was a stud, right? Like Steve Rogers, Captain America was a stud. Tony Stark to a degree, I mean, was a stud, right? Like there's also some of that stuff, but like I remember when they made Winter Soldier and I thought like, oh, Captain America loving his country but hating his government.
Right.
I'm into this.
Right.
And then fast forward however many years later, like Avengers Endgame hit.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, like, did we just hit peak movie?
Yeah.
And honestly, since then, I don't know if I've seen
Yeah.
too many.
Okay. I love that you said that because back to what you were saying, the way that they're portraying men, especially in TV shows and even movies. I remember growing up watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Uncle Phil was like the ideal, like father figure. He was a tough, hardworking guy. You know what I mean? But he was also loving in his own way, and he would, you know, put you on a straight line. And you don't really see that anymore. And then when it comes to movies, I mean, you have no further to look than Marvel. I mean, She-Hulk, you know, they have all these, and I get it. Like you want to involve women, that's fine. But, you know, making She-Hulk, if I'm not mistaken, they made her more powerful than Hulk himself.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel is actually, if I'm not mistaken, the most powerful Avenger.
Yep.
And so like there's a whole agenda being pushed, right? And to the normal person that's not really looking out for stuff like that, they won't notice it. But over time, it adds up.
There isn't, I mean, tinfoil hat stuff. I mean, I guess for the cape of keeping it like layman and simple, like yes, an agenda, but personally, I just think the agenda is to divide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's my biggest thing. Like as much as there's like a lot to maybe gripe about when it comes to like male-female relationships right now, as much as there's to gripe about what we're seeing in terms of entertainment, stuff like that. The whole point of it is to create division.
Agreed.
Yeah, they want to do that. And it's not only with gender, it's with race.
It's with all of it.
Yes.
They want to separate
100%,
everyone.
100%.
So knowing they could keep their control, they could keep the power, and also to take the men out of the household, because now it's just the women. They're not, you know, the teachers. They don't care about, you know, discipline and making sure the man becomes a man.
Right.
Now you see most Black women, they're raised by a single mother. Now they're walking around, oh, I'm independent. I don't need a man. I don't need this and that. Now you have masculine women are walking around. Now the marriages is going down.
Yeah. I'm sorry. They did a study from prisons, like all the prisons. And they said that 85% of all the prisoners come from single parent homes. And most of them come from parent homes where they were raised by their mothers. So that says a lot. Well,
I mean, again, there's no question that like not having a good home is issues.
Yeah.
Right. Now there are ways to phrase it like, I guess, like, oh, because it was a woman raising the kid that it all like got fucked up. And like, that's an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think the angle is ultimately that like they're trying to keep homes broken up.
Yeah, they are.
Like they're trying to keep men out of the house for any number of reasons. You know what I mean? And like, and we know that like, and again, we know that the lack of a strong father figure creates like problems, especially in men in terms of like violent crime and stuff like that. But on every level, right? Whether it's from like the kind of welfare, not rewards, but like the welfare opportunities that I guess offered if you're struggling, all the way through to I guess like messaging and what we're taught every day and consuming with media. The idea is to divide. Yeah. Right. Even with the lockdowns, like we're more connected than we've ever been. I mean, we're live now doing a podcast, right? But we're also feeling more lonely than we ever have too. Yeah. Right? And so I think that's again where I always come back to is like remembering the game is to divide, and that frankly, I'm sure a lot of these single mothers would rather not be single mothers. Yeah,
right? Agreed.
So it's remembering that like we need each other and always trying.
But there's an incentive to stay single. I mean, welfare gives women all these benefits, right? Yeah. And to kind of bring it back around to the whole Andrew Tate situation, Andrew Tate and even Jordan Peterson, Andrew gets a lot of hate because people think that he hates women, but he actually speaks about how men and women should be together and how a man should lead a woman. If Anwar can go ahead and play the last clip I sent you, We'll play that one first, and then we can react to that one. I know there's a lot of chats, guys. We will get to you guys in a second.
Yeah, so make sure y'all like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I know you guys have
controversy.
Yeah, I know you guys have a
You
lot
said
of
the last video.
yeah, the Andrew Tate one. Yeah, that one right there.
All right, y'all ready?
Yep, ready. Go ahead.
I understand that you get 3 strikes in this game. Strike 1 is they try and shut you up and discredit you, which I've just been through. Strike 2 is they try and put you in jail for no reason. And strike 3 is they kill you. And one of my strikes is now gone, and I now firmly believe that they're going to try and kill me. Already given me quite a few warnings where I actually truly believe that I'm going to try and kill me.
All right. So what I want to talk about is the last strike that he talks about. He's come out on record multiple times and said, I would never kill myself. The fact that a guy has to say that is kind of crazy in these days, that a guy has to say, hey, by the way, guys, I would never kill myself. What do you guys think about that?
I do and I don't think it's crazy,
Mhm.
right? The fact that that can be a meme we all recognize, like that's the crazy thing. It's not the crazy thing that like he like on the one hand, I guess it's crazy that he feels like he needs to say that, but the fact that like we all inherently know that like he's saying that because like normies like think it's a conspiracy or like know that it's a conspiracy thing that like people get offed, right? And then other people who actually know that people like get off, that like it's become in a weird way, it acknowledges the acceptance we all subconsciously understand.
I'm sorry. Do you believe in that
Yeah.
though? That people get off, or do you not believe in that?
Oh, absolutely, dude.
You do? Okay, because
Dude,
I was
I mean-
gonna say
Absolutely, of
what's the
course.
Epstein?
Jeffrey
What
Epstein.
Jeffrey?
No, that's what I'm
The
saying,
Jeffrey
of course.
Epstein
I completely
situation. They said he committed. He offed himself.
Yeah, no, dude. Yeah, we all have.
and-
Yeah, we are.
the coroner came out and said that those his marks were actually consistent with strangulation.
Yeah.
So I find that very funny.
Yeah. But I
very
mean,
ironic.
if anybody's done any research into intelligence agencies, like the United States before terrorism, right? Before COVID and all this stuff, like it was like the drug war and like standing up cartels in South America and stuff like that. So like doing this kind of thing is something that's been happening, not just with our government, but with the governments around the world for a very long time. The thing is now that it's become so, especially since, again, I think like the war on terror on September 11th, like the playbook now is like known. Like you're either of a demographic where you're too old to be on the internet, right? So like you just know these as like ideas, for the example, like somebody like getting killed because they knew too much or something like that. Or you've been around the internet to know like, oh yeah, this is a thing that's happening, is repeated all the time. There have been books written about it, stories of an economic hitman, right? You know what I mean? But we also know nothing gets done about it. So we just accept the fact that we need people to say they won't kill themselves. Right. So there's no confusion later on.
I want to get your opinion on it, and then I want to ask both of you guys a question because it just came in. But go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all. But it goes back to how we're raised in our school system and the things that we learn. We think what history we're taught is maybe 100% true. The things that we're taught are 100% true. The things that we learn are by the winners. Would the winners ever tell you, I actually murdered this person when I told them that they suicided themselves?
Good point.
But now people don't have that ability to expand their horizons, right? Anything different, conspiracy theory. Right. Oh, any differing opinion, conspiracy theory.
Agreed.
And unfortunately, those are the people who swallow all the information. Sorry, pause.
Yeah.
who take all the information at face value and who can't think ahead, and the fact that he said this comment, it really goes to show you that these things happen. You have to keep your eyes open. There's been a lot of artists, music artists. I don't know if you heard about Avicii.
Yeah. We were just talking about him.
Yeah. We talked about him a few days ago.
I haven't heard about
There's
that.
a lot of stuff that he was against pedophilia.
Yeah.
And he made some comments or music about it.
Yep.
And, so
just the irony of it, that it happened right like around the documentary process. I know exactly what we just spoke about that literally.
I saw something about that with an actress recently. Yeah. I have no idea if it was like real. I forgot what the actress's name was, but she was like in some car accident, apparently like very heavy.
Oh yeah.
It's always car accidents or like, some type of like overdose or all of a sudden, a 29-year-old got a heart attack.
Someone goes depressed. Now they have to take pills.
Right. So my question to both of you guys is, knowing what we know and knowing what we all just talked about, is it then worth it trying to, let everybody know what's going? Like Andrew Tate's taking a big risk, right? Do you guys think that it's worth doing something like that if you know ultimately that if you look at history, everybody that's done what he's done has been dealt with in a similar way? Or if not, they've done something to like Kanye West. He's all of a sudden crazy. He wasn't crazy like a few years ago when he was one of the hottest artists out there. He was making all these companies millions of dollars, but now all of a sudden he's super, super crazy. Do you guys think it's worth it?
It depends on that person's goals and objectives, right? They're repeating the playbook that they've been doing for years, right? Just like how Andrew was saying, first they'll badmouth you, then they'll cancel you, then they'll come after you, right? So it goes back to what your prerogatives are. I'll say for myself, I'm not a social media influencer. I'm not a famous person per se. Would I go
Not
about?
yet.
Not yet.
Maybe just doing the food, doing the other podcast. Be famous tomorrow, bro. Come on.
So would I say these things about these negatives, the media, the government? Maybe not, because I have a family. But maybe someone like Andrew, whose prerogative is, listen, I've achieved a different level of success, or my thinking is a little bit different. This is my path now. For him, then it might be right. But we just have to look at our own chessboard in front of us. We have to think, okay, if we say certain things, they're going to come after you. Is it my time to say something? Do I keep my mouth quiet? Do I feed pieces of information later? And, for everyone, that's going to be their own personal decision. But definitely, if you're a younger person who's, let's just say, applying to certain jobs and stuff, don't be putting on your social media certain things, because they're looking for these things. And as much as you're trying to educate the other people around you, your status is getting compromised. So you have to balance these things out. Maybe I'm at a certain level where I can say certain things in the medical field, but if I was just applying to medical school and I was like, oh, I don't agree with COVID, and I'm sharing articles, they'll look at my social media and be like, oh no, we don't want to take them to medical school.
Yep. Wow, that's crazy.
And
I'm so glad that you said that, because the next video actually has something to do with that. I'll let him answer it, and then we can get to some of these chats, because I know they're waiting at the chats. Go ahead.
Worth it. I think that's something that's a lot to unpack there, right? Because I think one of the things when it comes to actually, there's something Jordan Peterson said that actually I think really agree with. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with everything he said.
Okay.
There's some things around religion that I've got questions about. There are a lot of things I do think make a lot of sense. And when it comes to psychotherapy and how the mind works and how people are, the guy in his field is top notch.
Yes.
He says something like, before you go out telling everybody else how to live, you got to get your own shit together, basically.
Agreed.
Right.
Clean your room is what he says.
Right. So when you say worth it, again, I only know so much about Tate, been watching him from afar, and stuff like that. Obviously he triggers a lot of people in a lot of different ways. But I do know the man has accrued a lot of wealth, and I know that he's put systems in place, that can allow him to survive after a cancellation that was I would, even from what I understand, it goes beyond an Alex Jones kind of cancellation, Uber.
Yeah.
Airbnb.
They canceled him on Airbnb. He said he's never used Airbnb.
Yeah.
A normal, let's be real here. A normal person, that happens to me, I'm done.
Yeah.
And he said that. He said that.
So there, I think it comes to where are you at in life?
Yeah.
What are your own personal things?
Yeah.
And then you need to measure where you can take the stands for you believe in, up to a point of how much risk you can tolerate. If I had a child, right? If I had a family, if I had a family first, I'd like to think I'd have even more financial security than I've got now. But let's say I had all the financial security a man would need, and then I had a family.
Yeah.
Then then I might be a little more likely to step up and speak out about things about what I really care about, right? So the fight needs to be had, and I think we all need to do it in our own ways, because if any man does not, if you really acquiesce to all of it and do nothing, then we're totally screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Just look at what happened to Socrates. Andrew Tate, I feel like he's a very intelligent person. He's look at the history, the past, what everything's happened in the world, and he has to take this chance. And he thought about it, he calculated, he's playing chess with it. He understands this is a possibility, and he was like, okay, do I want to help people? It comes down to your morals.
Yeah.
What matters more. And I think he definitely just wants to help men.
And I think there's a reason why, for instance, you're in the medical field, right? And you said how you necessarily may not be able to do or want to do what he's doing, but hey, he's doing it for you. So, and that's why he went from having, I think, 500K followers on Instagram to 5 million in the span of a few months. That was a crazy growth.
That was all.
But I want to get to some of these chats because I know they've been waiting now for a while. Go ahead and read some of them.
Yeah, we got a bunch. MMP asks, question to all the panel. If Andrew Tate is going to get charged with human trafficking, then should the creators of OnlyFans as well, based on the allegations logic?
Let the guest answer that.
That's if you get charged for that. You know, like, I don't even know if he's going to get charged for that. Like, the way that, like, from what I not understand about his case, but about how the game works in terms of going after people when you have powerful enemies. Like, they could get him on like tax laundering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many, like, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what the actual charges are.
It
Yet.
started as
you know,
organized crime, then it went to kidnapping 2 women, then it went to kidnapping 6 women, then it went to rape allegations. They just want to find something.
I like
Right.
what you said because I think there's a reason why they're specifically giving him the charges that they're giving him. They're not giving him tax evasion because he can pay that off, right? That's not as bad. Like in a social,
that's how they got the mob. Like, the entire, like, the tax evasion code law was written to like get the mobsters back in the day and like prohibition and stuff and like lock them up for life because they didn't have any.
Yeah, but think about it. Society and just in general, social media wouldn't really hate him that much if they were going after him for those charges opposed to sex trafficking. Now that's like one of the worst things you can do, right?
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, killing someone's character is one thing, and that can be done a lot of different ways. This is clearly where they're doing it. Making sure you stay in jail.
Mhm.
That's a technicality.
Yeah.
That's paperwork.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, now, whether or not he goes to jail, like, if there's some evidence where he did some crazy shit and what happens again, like, let justice be done. Right.
Yeah.
But like, we may find out that he gets locked up, not because there's some evidence of that, but because of something with his casinos.
Yeah.
Right. Or again, we'll need to see what happens, like, when they actually charge him with something. Cause I don't know that accusations have been made. I know he's being held for stuff, but I don't know that, like, the legal system, whichever system it is, I guess, Romania, right?
Yeah.
Has been like, all right, cool. We're moving forward to trial with.
Yeah. He actually had court today, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, cool. Can we
let's try to push away from the Andrew Tate subject.
Yeah.
For the rest of the
and
night.
guys, we have 21 live viewers in here. Make sure you like the video. We'll get to some of your other comments. Go ahead, bro.
David Jones asks, question for the guests. Have you been harassed by other guys over politics or social issues?
Yeah, I'll go ahead with that. Yeah, I have been back in, actually, it was when I was living in Miami in 2016.
Mhm.
You know, I'll be upfront and I'll admit that there's certain politics, even in the medical field. There's a certain side the medical field kind of leans to.
Mhm.
So if that field is leaning to that side, then you're pushing that thought process to the people who are potentially coming to it. You know, I had classmates of mine that would come to my apartment in Miami. You know, I may or may have not had a red hat, and they're coming and giving me grief in my own house.
Wow.
And I'm like, who do you think you are to come to my house that I invited you over, that I'm being respectful to, that you can act like this?
Right.
You know, so yeah, I've had it in medicine. It's there, definitely. So a lot of people, what they do is they take the middle ground, and it's another thing that when you grow up and you realize who the people in front of you are, then you realize when is it a time to talk and when is it a time to keep your mouth shut. Because one thing I will definitely say, coming with my age, is when I was a little bit younger, I was more opinionated. But as I've gotten a little wiser, there's a lot of power in knowing when to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
I have a question for you maybe later about the whole law passed in California, given that you're a physician. I don't know if you heard about that with the vaccines and what they cannot say to their patients now. Have you heard about that?
If we could like bring that up or something so I could see the, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
Then remember, maybe we'll talk about that like off after the cast. Agreed with the whole getting older, watching what you say thing, but back to the harassment thing. Like, I mean, I did COVID in New York, man.
Yeah.
You know?
New York was not playing with that. I remember
Yeah, dude.
I was living in Maryland. I went up to New York. Thought I was going to go out to eat at a restaurant. No, bro.
Like, harassment was the name of the game.
Yeah.
So like,
They don't play with
Were
you.
they
know,
shooting
what-
people
what-
with rubber pellets?
I mean, they were going that far, you know what I mean? But like,
I
you know,
mean,
to the degree, like when you're going everywhere, like making sure like you've got your card,
Yeah.
like, all that kind of, like, there was you certainly couldn't, like, you know, deviate. Where I found
No.
so I think there's truth in what you said about getting older, but I also think we're living in a time when, like, yo, let's be real here. Like, if, like you said, you say certain things, your job's at risk now.
Yeah, it is. Your
In
livelihood.
a way that did not exist 20 years ago.
That's true.
You know, like that's wild.
Your livelihood,
So,
your
like,
family
So
security.
it's true when you get older, but like now it's true because these are the times.
Agreed.
Yeah,
right?
even when you're younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch you say.
Anwar, can we get to
Yeah.
some of the other ones, bro? Go ahead.
Miyazaki Lee asks, question for the men. What strict boundaries / standards do you have with women in relationships that would be considered toxic? No girls' nights, clubbing, girls' trips, etc.
I don't consider those toxic. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
a lot of girls. One first.
A lot of girls think that's controlling, but I don't find that controlling. I find that being just territorial. I don't want my girl going out to a club where mostly guys are going to try to fuck women. Like you're trying to get women drunk and try to fuck them. I find that honestly weird.
I mean, I generally like if there's a night like that going on, I'm usually there. Like there's just
I agree.
That's just how it. I've never really been in a relationship where it's been like, oh, I'm going out with my girls and I don't want you there and you can't come.
Yeah,
that's a big red flag.
So it's never really been something I've had to deal with. My biggest thing is like disrespect. Disrespect takes many different forms. You know what I mean? And so that's where I draw lines. Give me a second to maybe think of some like maybe specific examples, but yeah.
So do you think your woman could come back from disrespect? Because for me, it's the truth, honesty. If you lie on the little tiniest thing, or even it's a big thing, I can't trust you now. But there's once the trust is lost, you can't come back from that. But you could disrespect, and maybe I could teach you to learn respect.
Well, I think that's actually, I think that's a good point. I think like part of disrespect is like if something like I might do something that you find like, like kind of messed up, but then there's a matter of like, see, it would be very, I don't want to say anything to piss off too many people.
Nah, go ahead. Say it.
It's unfiltered.
If you say something and like, you should just know why I'm upset.
Yeah.
And like do that kind of thing, especially as a man, like, come on. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But like to the degree that like you like, let's say there is a misstep, you explain what the boundaries are and you're like, all right, I didn't know. And then it's not repeated again. Like, great. Like that's a normal, healthy, that's how things like should happen. Right.
Yeah.
When it's outright, when things are being communicated and then ignored, right? Like then that's something like deeper. And I think you don't get to the point of lying until you've had multiple rounds of disrespect.
Correct.
Like allowing that to happen in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, especially depending on how far in the relationship we are. If we just started dating, there's those certain most basic boundaries of like, okay, we're talking to each other, we're exclusive, but then it's definitely getting later down the line. And I know a lot of times girls use this reasoning of, but you're doing it, why can't I do it? I even go a step forward and I compromise with them. I'm like, listen, I don't have female friends.
Mm-hmm.
My female friends are my work associates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going out with females. Like I'm going out with my boys. And when I am going out with my boys, we're talking about how do we make more money? How do we get into a new business venture? Okay, maybe we'll go watch a UFC fight.
Right.
But we're not just
very nice.
Yeah.
we're not just going to like a strip club, So it's just like what I would be recommending for you to do. And I always recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say any hard line statements, but maybe indirectly I am meaning a hard line because I'll say if they're doing certain things that I don't like, I'll just say, hey, listen, when you do those certain activities, I don't feel respected. I don't feel like you care for my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just let them know. I'm like, listen, you can do whatever you want. You're totally fine with that. But this is not something that I like and that maybe we should see other people. So I'm not saying in a way that, I'm controlling, you do what I say, but I give you the option. And if you don't want to do that, hey, that's fine. You're a nice person. Let bygones be bygones, and we move on to our own direction. So
yeah. Well, good answers, guys.
How do you feel about it?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Man.
Go ahead. Don't try to skip over.
I'm very cut and dry. I tell anybody I'm talking to, first of all, what my expectations are, and that pretty much I expect to have exclusivity, but I'm also open on my end. And that's something that, a lot of women can't handle, but I'm very honest about it. I'm still super, super young. I want to enjoy my life. But I also, if I am dealing with someone, I want them to know what type of person I am. Yeah. And I tell everybody that. And if they can't handle it, then it's cool. I'm saving myself the drama long term, right? Because I think that's where men go wrong. They lie to women, and we all know what we want. And then long term, here come the problems.
Well, I think transparency is like what's up. Like when I was, when I was younger and stuff too, like I like, again, when I think about as I've aged and constantly revisited what it means to be a man and stuff like that, like I don't feel like I should have ever had to lie.
Agreed.
Right. So there have been times when I was younger where I was dating someone and I'd be very honest, like, you're not the only person I'm, potentially dating and stuff like that.
Women can't handle that though. Here's the problem with women, right? They want the truth. But they can't handle the truth. We had this conversation earlier.
We did. Jesus.
My brother here had to handle something earlier because of the same situation. The woman wants the truth, but when she gets the truth, she can't handle it.
She don't like it.
And then it comes to well, why can't I do it? But we're not the same, right? And so we're not going to go down that road. But let's get to some other comments, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, Miyazaki Lee asks, question for the men. Why do you think there's only men here, bro? Why do you think society demonizes men who prefer younger women? DiCaprio got a lot of hate for under 25 or 25 under go home.
That's a good question.
Did he get a lot of hate? I feel like he's doing great.
He's
doing great. He's
he got some Twitter hate.
He's still loved.
He gets a lot of hate from women. He definitely doesn't get hate from men. We're okay with it. I don't mind. Hey, I'm clapping for him, right? Good for him. And I mean, he's worked hard for that. I mean, if he was just a guy working at Starbucks, maybe with his looks, I mean, I don't know how he looks now, but like maybe he still would have, some success. But come on, man, this guy's worked really hard.
Part of me feels like, listen, like if men and women are different, right? So like the way we experience age and time is obviously a very different thing. And like, evolution and things in biology being the way they are, like when half the population as it gets older becomes potentially less attractive to the other half of the population, it's only natural that there's going to be a lot of noise around trying to get people to like not do that.
Hey, I'm going to shame you.
know what I mean?
Right.
There's just too many people.
They're not ready for this.
Side of that.
They're not ready for this.
It's just gonna stay. So like that's just like gonna be a thing.
All the women just left the chat.
So you think it's like a manipulation tactic?
No, I think just some part of it is like is inevitable. Like if it was reversed like the other way, like if being a man was harder for us, like as we aged, I'm sure it'd be like, yeah, and like, well, let me flip the script like another way, right? So like a lot of the time you hear, women talking about how they can't find a guy who's comfortable with the fact they make more money or more successful or something like that.
Correct.
Right?
We have a lot of those.
Right. I've dated a lot of successful women and stuff like that. And there is some truth, right? That like, I think when you're a man who's secure in his masculinity, right? And I'm not saying I'm that guy who's like fucking perfect by any means,
Own it.
right? But a guy who is secure in his masculinity does a lot better with a woman like that than a guy who is not.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, though, the stats as I understand them, hypergamy being real,
it is.
Women still kind of want to date their equal or above, right? So now it's like, is there going to be a chorus of men being like, well, girls, like, we all want to be with somebody and be together and we don't want to be alone. Like all you got to do is just be willing to be with dudes who like have more money and stuff.
Right.
So like, I feel like the only reason I bring up that up, because I feel like it's the same kind of thing where like, when there's just like a clear imbalance there's going to be a large part of the population that like bitches and complains about it. And so it's going to be in the news and it's going to be talked about. And that's never going to change.
Yeah.
It's never going to change.
Okay. Anwar, can you read that one more time so he can answer that?
Question for the men. Why do you think society demonizes men who prefer younger women? DiCaprio got a lot of hate for 25 under or go home.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. So, it goes back to, this is how society has been formed. Society, older men have always been with relatively younger females.
Younger females want the older guys.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's
the
exactly
other question.
true.
Do the girls actually want he's the older guy?
That's what I mean. Here's the thing, right? Women get mad at men like him for dating younger women, but when they're that age, they want to date older men.
Exactly.
Are they getting mad at the younger girls for wanting to date older men?
No, they're not.
They're not.
And here's
It's like
because
jealousy.
women always somehow avoid the consequence, right, of their actions. And here's another thing. You said something earlier that we age differently. And I would say that men have it harder when we're younger and we have it easier when we're older. Women have it
if we put
easier.
in the work.
Women have it. Women don't have to put in the work when they're younger. They still have it easy.
Women are born with their value.
Yes. And when they get older, man, when they lose that value, it's a hard work. The only body that really wants to be around them are pets, and they probably have no choice. So what do you want?
I think that the weird thing is there's some supermodel or a former supermodel. I think she did some YouTube stuff or some TikToks. She was like viral for like a hot second, talking about how she's like invisible now. And like we started out invisible, you know, and then if you put in the work, you become not invisible.
Exactly.
It must be like just channeling into some empathetic energy for a second. It must be difficult to go from being visible to not visible.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's
Agreed.
like.
Yeah.
And as I get older,
It's
I don't
so
know
true.
that I want to experience
It's
that.
so
At
true.
some point as a man, I'm probably going to, right?
Okay. So
You
here's
know,
the
but,
thing.
like,
What you just explained is kind of like someone being born into incredible wealth and then losing it all.
maybe, yeah.
Right? Opposed to someone who had nothing, was born into nothing, like Aladdin, right?
Sure,
And all of a sudden, you know, he gained some, you know, he gained some wealth.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go from everything to nothing because you don't know how to earn that. So you know, that's our take on that. Let's get to another one, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, MHD asks, do you guys believe that women can raise men? I believe men raise men because you look to become like your father. On the other hand, women raise girls because they understand how their mind works.
Good question. I'll let you guys answer that. Go ahead.
Doing it first one.
Sure. They don't have the full tool set to fully raise a man. You know, we don't want to badmouth single moms who are doing their best.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but even those single moms, hopefully they have brothers, maybe that there's uncles, there's other cousins who can come in and give this support that maybe a dad who would be at home who says, okay, here, this is how you throw a baseball.
Right.
This is how you kick the soccer ball. This is how you throw a punch. This is how you handle your adversity.
Right.
This is how you talk to a girl. Okay, you know, unfortunately, the dad might not be there, but if there is some other, even a mentor, a role model, an uncle, an older brother, you know, something's better than nothing, right? Because you
Agreed.
can't replace the dad at home. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll say to your point. How can you raise a man when you've never been a man, right?
Exactly.
And like for instance, for myself, when I was a kid, I never met my father. It was hard living with my mother, trying to be a man and not knowing what a man was, not even having a mentor or a father figure or a consistent boyfriend that she had that was like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Let me help you out. So that's really tough. But at the same time, like you said, we don't want to bash on single mothers
exactly.
because they're doing their best.
Go ahead.
No, you please.
It's not bad that they're single mothers. I understand that, but they are mothers. They're playing their mother. I was luckily, I had a grandma and a mother. My grandma, she didn't, you know, obviously she's not a man, but she was pushing the other side so hard. She was like, nah, you're going to go work in the garden. And my grandma, she had money, but she was like, you're not getting any of it. Yeah. That's how I want to raise my son too. You're going to have to get it from the mud. You need to go work for it. You want something, go outside and work for it. You want, you know, once your bottle, go, you know, crawl for it, go get it.
Yeah. I think there have existed women who have had the capacity to raise men.
Yes.
And those women, I think, probably had a really good understanding of the challenges the challenges that existed in becoming a man or being a man, right?
Right.
And I think to the degree where both sexes have begun to lost the plot about the challenges the other deals with, then the harder it becomes for either one to do that task.
Agree.
Like the more women you have raising young men who don't really understand or appreciate some of the struggles that men go through when they come of age and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a rough ride, I think.
Yeah.
Especially for that guy. Now, at the same time, like if you were a dad on the flip side trying to raise a daughter, you know what I mean? Like you got to be aware there's a lot of shit you are not aware of or have the capability to deal with, or is that beyond your thing, and that there are different struggles that exist and that you've got to plan accordingly to deal with that.
Right.
And so I think, can it happen? Sure.
Yeah.
I think in the way the world's going now and how we're not appreciating what the other side offering and stuff like that, it's going to make it harder and harder to do that successfully.
Yeah. And when women do raise good men, it still is the minority.
Yeah.
If we're being honest. I want to get to the last video because we're going on an hour now. So can we get to the last video? I really want to make sure that we touch that one before we get to some of these other chats. And shout out to the guests, man. You guys have been amazing. Shout out to the chat. We see you guys. Thanks for being patient. We're getting to your comments. Go ahead.
Psychologists, a bunch of people put in power by the government basically, is threatening to take my dad's psychology license because he's been criticizing the government. This isn't a joke. This has been torturing my family since 2018, seriously bullying my dad in a way that really caused everyone in my family a lot of stress. I think it's part of what contributed to him being quite ill in 2019, 2020. He's getting investigated because of tweets he's tweeted, opinions, things he said on Joe Rogan. They're requiring him to do media retraining that he pays $225 an hour for an unspecified amount of time. And then at the end of that training, they decide whether or not he's learned anything and whether he can continue being a psychologist. This isn't even a process that goes to court. It's just this regulatory board of like 12 tyrannical individuals. It's crazy that what you say online can be used to get rid of your license if people don't like you politically. The college.
All right, cool. So with that being said, we touched on this earlier without even knowing we were going to watch this video. What do you think about that?
No, this is kind of how regulatory medical boards work. He's part of the APA, American Psychological Association. Some people actually know APA by different, when you have to write different essays and stuff, APA style is like a format. You have to source your essays. There's a psychological association. I'm part of a family medicine organization. There's a internal medicine organization, surgery organization, and they have their own little like review boards. And to a certain degree, that these are almost like a jury and a judge right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to think that parts of academia, medicine, other things, and business are not politicized is very naive. So, of course, that he might not be necessarily saying anything that's actually contradictory to current literature in psychology. They're being told by their powers behind them, get this guy off.
Yeah.
Get this guy off. Oh, and look at this term, retraining.
Yeah.
Retraining.
Yeah.
Or is this some sort of facility that you have to get your brain reconfigured? Yeah. Oh, stay in line. Stay in line. Yep. What we're saying. If we don't like it, you're going for retraining.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Do they do that in your field? Have you ever heard of this?
About to get a phone call tomorrow.
No, but it's like the thing is you would think certain things in science are based on questioning hypothesis, looking at evidence, and this is completely contradictory to what the foundation of science is. And I find that extremely shocking.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't speak to that's his situation specifically, but like, listen, I mean, dude, there was a ministry of truth. You know what I mean? Like these are the times like we're in, right? There was we just saw the Twitter files. I mean, like they were talking about how like the intelligence agencies were, whether they were paying like colluded with major social media networks and then paid them to manage certain information. Like the idea that that narratives are built, right, and then maintained, and that influence is exercised in these very important institutions we agree like with that exist. This is what's up. This is the time we live in. Like I completely think if Jon Stewart had the Daily Show, right, because like the reason the Daily Show blew up back in the day, and again, not to fucking age myself here, sorry, but like back in the Daily Show, the way this dude was like constantly questioning like, what about these weapons, what's going on over there, right? Like if that happened today, that would have been disinformation. That guy would have been pulled down and shut up like right away. There was one evening where Trevor Noah did a piece. He did one segment.
They're not ready for this yet.
Just being like,
they're not ready for this yet. I know what you're talking about.
Should we listen to these shady ass pharmaceutical companies? Gutted. Gutted, right? So like, this doesn't.
He actually left the show, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
He's like, I'm fucking done with this shit.
Yeah.
It was like, he couldn't be funny if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So like, this is just a symptom of the overall larger picture. So what I would say to everybody, I don't know when we wrap up, but like learn how money works. Yeah. Number one, learn where money comes from and how it works. Yeah. How it influences and flows, makes its way through the power institutions that we have, our government, our corporations, etc. And then you got to begin to understand how these narratives and how these things like play out. I mean, I will say this, and I'm sure this is going to upset a lot of my friends back at home, but I'm never going to Canada again. I mean, that was decided a long. That was
man, even Jordan Peterson.
Canada, man.
Like, get out of there if you can, and don't go if you don't.
Is it worse than America? Because you remember when Trump was in government, everyone was like, Canada, Canada.
You know, if you never got the vaccine there, you can't leave.
Really?
That real?
Yeah, like you still can't leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus. Isn't it like that in Australia too?
I don't know about Australia. I don't know if it's like that, but like then they did the whole. I mean, you guys remember the trucker thing?
Yes.
Trudeau's.
Yeah,
maniac.
no, that was crazy.
So like in Trudeau's administration, does anything like this surprise me? I'm surprised it took so long.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get to some of these chats, and real quick before we get to some of these chats, can you guys let them know, for all the viewers and everybody who's gonna watch this video, where they can reach you guys at?
Also, what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is probably the best way. NYCK83.
Okay, and it will be in the description, guys. So
appreciate that. And I actually work in tech. I work in e-commerce, e-commerce development, migration, design, all that stuff. So
you really have to know people's demographic and how their mind works.
I wouldn't go that far, but I can tell you this: if you have given my history in various digital projects, currently I'm in the e-commerce space. But like, if you got anything you want to build online with developers and designers or whatever, I can tell you how long and how much and what you're going to need in order to get it done.
okay, okay. What about you? Where can I reach you at?
You probably saw me looking on my phone because I didn't remember my own Instagram handle, but my Instagram handle is Dr. Kish S. That's Dr. KISHS. You guys can reach out to me, especially if you're interested in the medical field, whether that's becoming a nurse, it's becoming a doctor, or even some guidance in college. Because one topic I wanted to talk about, nowadays, of what's the value in going to school versus going to business. So I can give you guys a little bit of guidance with that. And because I am actually a physician. I'm a family medicine physician. I've been taking care of people, newborns. I've done deliveries. I've intubated people in the ICU. I put a tube down their throat. I've ran codes, and I've saved people's lives. Unfortunately, I've seen people die in front of me too. So that's a little bit about my background.
What's the hardest thing you have to do in your job, in your field?
The hardest thing is keeping your own mental composure when you're feeling a little overworked and the patients need you to be at your best.
Yeah.
When you're not even necessarily well rested, you feel burnt out. But that actually provided me with a sense of discipline of how do I push through, because actually in medicine, what's happening, there's a lot more doctors leaving the field than physicians coming in.
Yeah.
And
what's the reason for that?
Because people are getting tired of the politics. There's electronic medical records. Just like, let's say, we're having a discussion in different fields that you're in, you document things, right? But nowadays it's come to the point where it's just like, I can't talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this the whole time. And we lose that, face-to-face connection, and the art of actually doing the medicine gets lost, and people are just like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to just come home and type like 20 notes.
Yeah. Don't open that jar of worms, because the whole robot situation. We can get in and talk about that all night. Let's get to some of these comments, bro, and we'll get ready to close out the show for the
Miyazaki Lee asks, question for the guests: what are some useful habits for a productive work ethic besides working on side gigs outside of work?
Productive work ethic, I think the dopamine thing is real. I've been looking, there are a lot of people on YouTube talk about how to get rid of the dopamine just overload we're constantly getting. I think I think knowing how to do a few hours of solid work time, break that up, and then another few solid hours of work time, being able to actually an hour or two intense focus.
I recently heard someone say that all the successful people learn how to do that. That it's not so much about working for so long, but it's working smart for a small period of time and then taking a break. And
he's being humble, because he put it on his story and I screenshotted it. Your whole schedule, what I'm gonna do throughout the day, work, and then have fun, work, etc.
I got that from actually Luke Belmar on from Twitter and stuff like that. So I want to throw out, Craig, it wasn't an original thought, but it's something I've been doing for a while. Everybody talks about get enough sleep, stuff like that. But I think and as someone who spent a lot of time managing projects and people and stuff like that, the time in meetings and stuff like that, you really learn, when you really think about where meaningful work, where valuable stuff gets done, right? There's the times where you need to be heads down, problem solving, doing a thing. Then you think about what are the things I actually need to interact with someone else for? I actually need that call to make a decision and get something done, versus calls where you're just on it and stuff like that. So I think it's really separating that, knowing that you need heads down, an hour or more uninterrupted work time to be productive, get results, then connect with people, make decisions, collaborate, whatever, and then get back to that solid work time.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think about that?
In addition to what he's saying, making sure that you know in your own mind, because it always comes back to the mind, right? I have to be productive. Just like if we go back to that phrase that we as men are born with no value. So what are unproductive tasks? You know, sitting at home and smoking, playing video games all day, watching ESPN and football all day. These are things that might be fun, but release that dopamine spike. You're so focused on these other things that when it comes time to do work, then you're like, oh, I can't focus for more than 10 minutes. Yeah, because you lost all your energy on other stuff. So you have to retrain your mind to know that the fun, certain things that you do has to come after the work, and you have to stick with that. And that in itself is a type of mental endurance that we have to work on every day. Every day we have to work on that.
I'll actually throw out something else there too, and then we can move on to the next one. But like also learn how to use your calendar. Learn how to use your calendar, block out time, right? Block out time. But also like I also have a thing where like every day there's 1 or 2 must do's. And there's a list of things that are good to do that I need to do at some point that I have to do. But like 1 or 2, like today, this has to get done. So then you have a priority, you've got time blocked for it, you get it done. And maybe you get those important things done. Maybe you would like to got other things on the list done. Maybe you couldn't for whatever reason, but you still got the meaningful stuff done and you've added to the next.
And here's the thing too. If you guys don't have like an actual calendar, because who really has one nowadays,
Google
right?
Calendar.
Google Calendar.
We all know digital calendars.
And Google Calendar, you can add your friends to it and they'll keep you accountable. They can keep you accountable. You know what I mean? So that's something that we actually just started using. You guys have been amazing, man. Can we get to like maybe 2 more and then we can get ready to close out for the nighttime show?
Yeah. Bayou City Report question. How do you see future national economics impacting dating over the next 5 to 10 years, particularly in the United States for both men and women?
That's a very interesting and a good one.
The chat always.
That's a
the
thinking
chat,
man's
listen,
question,
the chat always comes with the heat, man.
Very good question. I think now, more people are waking up. They're seeing what the reality is. And when you see what's ahead of you, you have to think of what is your most practical move. Can you completely change the mindset of that opposite gender? Let's just say whether you're male or female, you don't agree with certain things that they're doing. How long are you going to sit there and be like, oh, this opposite gender, they don't listen, they're misogynistic, oh, he's a playboy? At what point are you going to maybe start setting your horizons maybe overseas? Maybe thinking that, okay, maybe potentially if I want a man who maybe is a doormat, who takes care of everything that I want and says everything, maybe I should look at overseas men. And maybe the same thing for American men, that you want someone who is a little bit more on your goals and your path, that, listen, I need maybe a more traditional stay-at-home wife. I need someone who's focused on that. Maybe it's time to look overseas as well, because now with the age of the internet, the world is connected. That's that random person in a village and something, God knows, who knows where, if they have a certain attraction, they have a certain skill, they're known. So this is the future now. And
the pros and cons to the internet. What do you think about that?
Man, next 5 to 10 years, that's an interesting time. That's a very interesting question, a good question, but also I'm going to break down where maybe it's not a great question, right? Because like economic factors have affected maybe why there's so many like dads not in the house, and to what degree that's been affecting like Gen Z and how that's been affecting how people date. Like that's a vector that like money, lack of money just doesn't explain, right? 5 to 10 years, I guess, interesting timeline, but like like people aren't having babies, like population, there are population drops that are potentially going to be happening here and like elsewhere too. And like, that's going to be a thing. I will also say this, like a lot of older girls are going for younger guys. And I think a lot of girls who are,
that is true.
A lot of women I know, I think a lot of people forget that like having to work until you're 65 and retire is actually a pretty raw deal for anybody involved. Man or woman.
Say that again.
Man or woman. Shitty deal. Right. I think men are a little more willing to do it because like we're designed to serve. And if we're served doing it for at least for people we love and care about, then, we'll do it. I think that there are, as being part of that demographic, having lived a lifetime of this and now getting to a point where we're hitting these ages and seeing that people aren't getting married and stuff, I feel like there are attitudes that are shifting that are maybe kind of like, oh, on the female side, I mean, where this career I thought I had is not exactly as rewarding as I thought it was going to be, or certainly having concern that, or maybe realizing that these other things like family and stuff are more important than they thought. So like that is like as much as we've gone to the extreme, I also think there's now a building of a differing opinion now, however, like minor. So between like, yeah, the economics of things, populations dropping, wars and everything else, it's very hard to kind of make a prediction. That's why I think the only thing you can do is focus on your situation. Get your situation right, get your situation better.
Yeah. Me personally, in the next 5 to 10 years, I know they're trying to add that central banking system, everything's going online, crypto.
Right.
So that might change the dating in the sense of everyone might look in, oh, your social score, what do you have? How much money do you have?
That's-
Now the
listen,
money's
that's
big,
like
so much more.
When we say dating, though, that assumes people are still like going out. Like how many people are like, I saw something recently where like incel dudes were transitioning because like life was easier for them to like be like a woman and stuff like that. Like and like CBDCs come out, metaverse comes out. Like for all we know, there may not be dating.
Yeah, the metaverse stuff.
You
is
know what I
crazy.
mean? Like
dolls too now.
The dolls are no joke. I think that
Yo, the doll is no joke,
the
bro.
doll situation is pretty cool.
It's kind of sickening too, because I heard I seen an article where it said, are they going to allow child dolls for pedophiles so they don't instead they don't have F kids?
Right.
I was like, Jesus.
Okay.
Balenciaga's on that. Balenciaga's on that.
So
patent.
Bruna, I think this would be a good question for you, sir. Bruna has a question. Any advice for someone that is aspiring to become a physician?
Yes. So the first thing is just know, and I will be very clear cut. I will tell you the path of how it happens in your 20s up to your upper 20s, 27, 28. You will be not making any money.
Mm-hmm.
Your friends will be going out, having parties. You can do a little bit, but most of your time is spent studying.
Yeah.
You are in the library day in, day out. Your teachers don't teach you anymore. You are self-learning. This is much of life now.
Sounds like this podcast situation.
It's self-learning, and medicine is not what it used to be. So you need to know all of those things before you get in. And also the respect factor. Doctors are not respected as well as they used to be.
It's very true.
Now, of course, some doctors deserve it. They don't give good service, but also nowadays everyone can get a white coat. A nurse can be a doctor. A physician assistant can be a doctor.
Same thing could be said for police officers.
A lot of physician
Maybe
assistants do end up being the doctor.
Yeah. So, and then, you're competing with other, not directly, but fields who are, potentially putting you down, saying you're not it, even though all the liability, all the real decision-making goes on you. So this is what the landscape of medicine is, but there's nothing more rewarding than taking good care of someone, and someone says, thank you for taking care of my family member. No one has ever given me that treatment. Thank you for taking care of my aunt or uncle and explaining it because other doctors never did. That emotional connection cannot ever be replaced with any sort of physical gift, even sexual gift. Like that in itself is towards the end, and that's what makes it worth it. But you have to get to that point. And honestly, there's a lot of times where I was just like, I don't want to do this, but I pushed through, and here I am. I
like that you touched on self-learning. One of my biggest mentors is Justin Waller. He was saying this on a podcast before. You have to take the first step. When you shoot a gun, you have to shoot the gun to know how to adjust the scope.
Yes.
Before you do anything, you need to take that first step. You need to take action. A lot of people will manifest, they won't take action on it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to one more before we gotta wrap up here.
All right, let me pick a good one.
And shout out to the chat, man. We appreciate you guys. Thanks to the guests too. You guys are amazing.
All right, I got one. Question for the panel: will future American society and culture become more gynocentric or reverse to more masculine? I guess he means polar, or like masculine. I guess Will it be more gynocentric or more masculine?
I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because for example, we go back to like the Marvel thing, like Top Gun Maverick, like markets are still real. You know what I mean? Like what people want is like still real, and also things are like breaking down, and it's not necessarily serving women or men. Like I don't know how much longer this, like it could continue to deteriorate and get worse, or there can be a realization. You know what I mean? Like everything has a counter. Like what is it? The thermodynamic rule. Everything has an equal and opposite counter reaction. I just don't know that we've seen it yet. And maybe that's continuing to grow. In some ways, some of the things we've talked about today, like the Tates and everything else, I think is the early signs of that.
Yeah.
Of that other thing. One thing I will say, though, I guess maybe on this thing, and also to the question before the physician question, is that and maybe I'm being a little too naive with my ideal like situation, but I feel like a good guy, like a great masculine like figure, like man, like you have like great leaders and stuff who will like throw their soldiers to like the wolves, but then others who like walk with them in the trenches, right? So like if you're a guy who's capable, has a shit together, has a great set of like, who is capable of taking care of and just being like that awesome person. When that time where it's like where that praise is like getting thrown, I think it's like you have all of your friends eat first before you eat.
Yeah.
Like that kind of man, despite everything we're seeing in here today, never goes out of style.
Yeah.
It's never going to go
agree
away.
with
Like
that.
it's always going to be desired. And even though it might not be as easy to Instagram,
Yeah.
those kind of values and stuff like that. I think so long as you're a man that does that for your family, the people you care about, let alone the women in your life, despite all that noise, you're going to be in demand. You're going to be good.
I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, I agree with that. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's already shifting towards the more masculine. And I want to be careful when I say this word masculine, because masculine doesn't mean that you're a toxic male. Masculine means that you are a responsible male. You're a responsible male that, one, takes care of yourself, that has the status, that has certain financial characteristics, that is a man of stature and respect, who extends that to his family, his wife, his children, his friend circle. So he takes care of himself. And as a result, he takes care of all of them. So that type of man, I think, is on the rebound now. They're coming back up because they've been so defeated. They've been so put down. You know, just like you can see comment section and lots of videos, you can see how many males are agreeing that, okay, you know, whether they're getting the results or not, oh, we need to change. There needs to be a shift. Now, obviously, you know, we don't want it to go to an extent that people are bashing females, right? This is a relationship. This is an important dynamic that we need to have on a balance. But I think that comes a little bit more from the male aspect, because as much as you ask another person to act a certain way, you have to act a certain way first before you can almost try to expect that from them. And in this time and day, it's more important for the male to act that way, right? You set a standard for how you act. You set a standard for how your brothers to act. You set a standard for how your children to act. And then, as you see, as a good role model, then the females notice that too. Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely, I think it's on the male right now. It's the time of the male right now.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. Guys, I want to thank you both for coming today. You guys were amazing. Thank you to the chat.
Thanks for having us.
We have another show getting ready in less than an hour. Once again, guys, if you guys want to reach out to them, their links are going to be in the description. Any other announcements before we get off?
Again, 50K by June 10th. I know y'all want to be on the cruise. I know it. It's
I'm
free.
going on this cruise.
Let's go. My boy Nick said he's going to be hop on it too, so it's going to be lit. 50K by June 10th. I'm going to pay for 2 people to come on. It's going to be Nick, I guess now. Josh, me, Anwar. Eric, you going to come?
Nah, I'm good. I don't like,
come on, man.
I don't like cruises. I'm good.
We're going to bring a photographer, a videographer, and we're going on the Virgin Cruise, which there's straight girls trips, no kids. So you know how that goes. We're going to have fun. It's going to be amazing. So I hope y'all have a great night. We're going to get ready for this night show. We're going to have 4 beautiful ladies on here, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, guys, thanks once again. We'll see you guys for the nighttime show. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Cactus.